actually a plural form. Singular form is datum. And usually, many of them used to say datas. That is a wrong use. Data is the right term, which is a plural term. So the information presented by the patient or a data collection format or a case record format or a questionnaire is called as data. The information is called as data. It can be readily available from the first hand from the patient or from any other sources. For example, if you want to collect the data regarding the type of disease prevalent in your community, you can go and collect the data by yourself. And that type of data is called as first-hand data or primary data. And any data which is collected by some other sources. For example, you can you can get the help from WHO, the Health Ministry, and also Director of Health Education. Those departments will have a list of data regarding the previous number of, that is previous fever cases in your locality, the number of people affected with the different diseases, is especially epidemic diseases. Then number of people recently had what to say COVID. Then number of deaths due to different types of diseases. So all this data will be available in certain registration centers, which are actually government based. So these data are called as secondary data, which you collect by yourself is called as primary data, and the data which is obtained from the some other sources which can be trustable. You cannot get anything from the unknown sources. So anything got from the trustable source is called as secondary data. WHO, then FDA, CDC, etc. are these well reputed in organization which can give you data required for the study. Research studies should be conducted on those data which are reliable. Reliability of data, as I told you, that data should not be wrong or accepted by many, and reproducibility of data should be also there. Otherwise, the data becomes unreliable. Reliable data is obtained only from these institutions, that is organization which are reputed ones. So let us see the type of data. There are different types of data. In that, there are main two types of data are qualitative data and quantitative data. Qualitative data is something which has the characteristic which doesn't change with time, but quantitative data is always measurable and that changes with time. For example, height, weight, BMI, then that is growth, etc. changing pattern, that is diameter of the head, circumference in children, that everything changes with time, and that all has certain units of measurement also. So thus it is called as what to say, it is quantitative data. Otherwise, it is qualitative data. For example, skills, IQ, personality, then self-esteem. These are measured. These are measured using different type of scales nowadays. So nowadays, what happens is earlier, bravery, honesty, IQ, intelligence, these are not measured, which cannot be measured. So those are the characters which couldn't be measured. But nowadays, what happened? We have found different types of questionnaire using which we can measure those data also. So I would like to say that data are of mainly two types, qualitative and quantitative data. Qualitative data is nothing but those which cannot be measured or doesn't have a proper unit. The polls in the election is actually a very good example for qualitative measurement. Different types of proposals about a particular incident happening, it is also a qualitative data. But a quantitative data has always a date that is measurable quantity and a scale. For example, length is measured in kg or pounds. That is, the weight is measured. Sorry, length is measured in terms of centimeter, inches, and meter. Weight is measured in terms of kgs and pounds, so and so. So I'm sharing my PowerPoint now. So the types of data in statistics, statistical data, we have to understand that first. So data types are the important concept in statistics which need to be understood so that we can apply the statistical measurements to your data and therefore to correctly conclude certain assumptions about it. It also helps in exploratory data analysis. What is exploratory data analysis? Exploratory data analysis means, exploratory means finding a new concept. So data analysis is always required, and before that, data collection is also required. If you want to understand what type of data you require for a particular analysis, you may collect that type of data. So understanding data is very important to select a particular analytical process, analytical technique for it. So generally speaking, as I told you, the qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative data is actually of two types, categorical and numerical. I told you numerical is actually quantitative data. Categorical, we can also, it is a type of qualitative aspect. So categorical can be also classified into nominal, ordinal, and numerical can be classified into interval and ratio based. Go to the next thing, categorical data. Categorical data represents characteristics, therefore it represents things like people, gender, language, etc. Categorical, it is also like we can, if you want to convert the categorical type into data, you can mark female as 1 and male as 0. Okay, so these are the common method used. Category means different categories. Usually we have two different categories in gender. Now we have a new addition. If you want, if you can, transgender is there. If you don't want to tell about it, then there's an option called as not to be reported. Then nominal data. Nominal data has certain values. They are the discrete units and also have label which are quantitative in aspect. That is, they are quantitative. They can be measured. Okay. This, see, names are, instead of this quantitative values are actually measured. But these measurable quantities are not there in nominal. We give names to that. We give labels to that. For example, male, female, English, man, then Frenchman, German, Spanish, etc. These are the categories commonly present in the data collecting format, and that is actually not having any values, but we can categorize them into 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which option you want to select? Ordinal. That ordinal means order of arrangement. Elementary, from lower aspect. Elementary, high school, undergraduate, graduate, postgraduate, likewise. So in this way, we can also classify the data into ordinal data. Ordinal values represent discrete and ordered unit. So there is rank in the among the teachers. There is rank among the military people. So these are actually orders of or arrangement. So generally speaking, discrete data, just to see the bold part, this type of data are distinct and separate. They have certain values. This type of data can't be measured but can be counted. They are actually round numbers. Continuous data, these are also measurement, but they are counted and they also have decimals. They are continuous. For example, a temperature, 98.4, 98.6, 98.8 can be there. 98 can be 9, 98.9 can be there, 99 can be there, 99.1 can be there, 99.9 can be there, 101 can be there, 101.2 can be there. So these are the continuous data. You have not only have the whole number, but also the decimals. So there is no limit in the value. So that is called as continuous data. Next is interval data. Interval values present ordered unit that have same, that is difference, that may have some difference. This interval data may also call like usually from one place to another. We say it as a or category. From one place to another, we give different types of category to that. To understand the exact differences between the two different values. For example, we say 0 degree as the cooling and we say the 100 degree as the boiling. So this is actually a very important example for interval. And also there is an interval from this to this. It is called as refrigeration. This is called as freezing. This is heating and that is boiling. So that is interval between each and every type. Ratio values are also ordered unit and that has some difference. Interval values may have difference and these ratio values also have difference, but ratio values always represents a numerator and denominator. That is a fraction between a numerator and denominator. For example, ratio data means we have a value called as WHR, waist hip ratio. WHR means the waist region is measured, hip region is measured, the ratio is calculated. So the height, weight, length, these all are good examples. And if you convert them into ratio, that is called as ratio data. Why should we know about these data? What is the importance of understanding the type of data? Data types are very important because statistical method can be only selected with this type of data selection. Understanding the data will only help you to understand the particular data that is data analysis to be used. And also one more thing I would like to tell you is, if you want to start a research study, you have to understand what type of data you're going to analyze. And beforehand, you have to select the variables also. The variables will be of two types. I've already discussed about it. The variables are actually of two types, that is dependent variable and independent variable. The variable which you can control is called as independent variable. Any experimental study can be done with the help of controlling a independent variable. For example, if you want to study GTT, glucose tolerance test, you will decide how much amount of glucose you have to give to the patient. So that type of control in your hand, that variables which you can manipulate or change with your research work, the intention of your research, that type of research is called as, that type of variables in the research is commonly termed as independent variable. Whatever variable which is dependent on this particular independent variable, which will change based upon the style of this independent variable, is called as a dependent variable. Okay, so data types, this selection of dependent and independent variable is very important in a statistical research. Therefore, knowing the type of data you're dealing with will help you to correctly select, exactly understand and select which type of statistical analysis will give you a right choice of decision. So, if you, whether you want a that is a chi-square test, whether you want to run a t-test, whether you want to do a ANOVA test, this hypothetical testing method can be selected on the basis of the data you select, data you collect and analyze. So data collection is very important. Statistical method, which is before going to statistical method, these data will also help you to understand how to represent the data. The collected data should be represented to the public, to the readers. So if you have collected a thousand patient, that is thousand people, a survey of 1,000 people has been done, understanding the anxiety level of their mental health or anxiety level in a particular condition like COVID, you can represent the whole data in the form of a table. But it is difficult to understand what do you mean by the table. The table will not give you a clear idea about that is the purpose of the research, the purpose of the study. So the results can be also published in the terms of frequency tables. That means the people who are affected or this age group, 35 to 45, how many people are affected by the disease? 55, 45 to 55, how many people are affected? 45 to 65 to 70 or 75, how many people are affected? Likewise, you can represent the data precisely in the form of frequency table. That means a consolidated table. And also you can divide them in that is, you can also convert them into percentages. This many percentage of people were affected. The 25% of people affected were of this age group from 50 to 60. Likewise, you can also precisely tell the proportion or percentage of them. That helps us to understand the result or what you want to convey through your research, that can be better understood in this manner. So the data, you have large amount of raw data, that data can be explained in this manner, or the output can be explained in this particular manner. That means by drawing a frequency table or using percentages or using proportions. Proportions means this out of this much people. For example, in a pie chart, we say that the students who are studying in this particular college, Mahalakshmi Women's College of Arts and Science, are from this particular area, from the East Chennai, from West Chennai, from South Chennai. Likewise, we can divide them. The people who are studying in your college into different categories, in your class into different categories, maybe based upon the that is what to say, your parents' profession or your interest or hobby, or even based upon the marks you score. You can be divided into this many people are scoring more than 60. These many students are scoring more than 80. These many students are scoring more than 90. Likewise, they can be divided into percentages and proportions. When you draw this, when you convert the tables into charts and bar charts, the people get in, that is, it becomes more attractive, impression gets better, and the understanding is also clear. A normal layman or a person with without a good knowledge on the science and technique and mathematics will be also able to understand what you want to say. So the graphical representation, the charting of the data is very important to make your data more understandable and relevant for the subjects or audience. Next, going to the ordinal data that we have already seen. In most of the tools, that means in the case of certain questionnaires, we use certain forms, questionnaire performers to analyze certain children. For example, we analyze the IQ level of the children and say they have good IQ, they have low IQ, they have average IQ. We can also divide the self-esteem or empathy of a patient into these tabs. We can also differentiate the emotional intelligence of the patient. Very important term, is commonly not understood by, or most of the students are emotional intelligence, just like the intelligence quotient of a person. Rather than that is intelligence, another intelligence is emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. That means if you're able to live along with the public, or if you're able to understand how to adapt with your fellow being in a hostel or in a class or in a work area, or do a teamwork, don't create a problem there, don't be alone, don't make, not making yourself uh, a black sheep. That become that term is called as emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. The level of the person to cope up with the social level growth, that is called as emotional uh, intelligence or quotient. And nowadays that is also a very important part of the study. We can understand that not all the students, see, we have conducted a research on these emotional quotient, and we have understood that the students who are very intelligent don't have enough similar amount of, they're not very good in emotional quotient. But the children who are able to live with the, who are in the joint family, who have good number of friends, who are able to adopt a different culture, and who are very much friendly to the that is all the economic classes, and along with the teachers, having good communication skill, are actually the top of emotional quotient. That shows that the child, along with developing an intelligence, should also be taught to improve their emotional level also. That means he should not get depressed soon after getting a failure, or he should not get so much excited after getting a that is success. So the way they balance their life between these two are actually very important in judging the emotional quotient. So yes, to understand how the questions will be framed in this aspect. If you want to frame question in to analyze the intelligence quotient, you will ask certain questions by which the child will solve those problem and answer it. Or will say, you will give 5 questions or 5 words to remember, ask them to tell it back. The way he answers the question the way answers the that is told words will also help you to understand. But just understand how we can understand the emotional quotient. Emotional quotient will be understood by the different types of question. The question will help them. How do you feel when you are being that is scolded by a teacher? How do you feel when your brother gets more that is applause than you? How do you feel when your friend gets a award? So this way, how the child answers to this, whether she feels very suppressed when his or her friends get reputation, or he feels good, he feels better when her friends gets a award or reward. So that type of acceptability is actually counted in this aspect. So I hope you understood. So why I'm telling all this is each question is actually counted as the data here. And ordinal data in the case of questionnaire is why I'm telling this matter repeatedly is, these once you answer all this question, based upon the question we give marks. Maybe there can be a negative marking. Negative marking in the case, if you answer no, I don't feel I'm suppressed, that no will be answered as a 10 marks. And if you yes, I feel a little bit that is suppressed, I feel that I am alone, nobody loves me, so that is counted as 0. So I think it's okay, that is counted as 5. So sometimes no answer, negative answering maybe, that is negatively answered question or the fifth choice, which is usually considered as the wrong choice. That fifth choice may be a proper answer, because sometimes when you are framing the question, we cannot frame the question in such a way that all questions should get 0 as 10 mark and last fifth that is a fifth so that is option as the full mark. So this way we have to, the question may have certain instruction that take the fifth question, that there is a the negative of the fifth question as the while adding the total. So in that also 25 to 50 the emotion range is good, 50 to 70 the emotion range is good, excellent, and that is from 80 to 100 it is there is outstanding in emotion. Like this they will give certain orders of arrangement. In this is why it is called as ordinal data. Continuous data is actually, when you have continuous data, it is very important for us to plot a histogram, box plot, etc. This is very this is common to some people and may not be common to think. See, most of the values plotted in the ECG and also most of the peaks, the graphs you see in the clinical that is monitors, especially blood pressure, pulse rate, all these are calculated by means of this type of bar diagrams. Values are plotted in the bar diagrams, and the together, all the bars together gives a curve. So this histogram is a very good representation for a continuous data. When you have continuous data without a gap, all the data will be arranged one after the other, from 0 to 30 seconds, from 30 to 1 minute, then 1 to 1.5 seconds. Likewise, we will divide the whole time, the time from 1 to 10 minutes, into lot and lots of seconds. So by which we get lot of bar diagram, and the bar diagram becomes a wave for you, T wave, P wave, S wave, all those things. So different types of wave can be seen in an ECG. All these are histograms. Why I'm saying this is to understand that continuous data is used to plot a histogram. So this is another example where you can understand the type of different type of bar graphical representation. The first one is bar diagram. The second one is histogram. Continuous bar diagram is called as histogram. Third is, if you want to plot all the data in the form of a table, it is called as frequency table. And I'll tell that in detail in the next class. And because we will be dealing with the data in practical session. And the next diagram is actually a circle graph, which is called as a pie diagram, dividing a pie. You know the pie, right? A apple pie, there is a blueberry pie. Similarly, a graph is actually subdivided, the diagram of the circle, where the sectors, each sector will represent each category. And I told you the students' marks and also their occupation of the parent, etc., can be plotted in this type of graphs, category wise. If you have only one type of variable to be plotted, you can use this type of graph, that is pie chart. Line chart, when you have a continuous data to be plotted, that is called as a line graph. That is, if you want to plot a growth chart, or if you want to plot a OD measurement, most of the microbiology students and biochemistry students know growth curve, log, lag, stationary phase, decline phase. I hope you all know that. So what do we do there? We actually count the number of organisms in that particular that is media in terms of time. But first 30 minutes, 1 hour, 1.5 hour, 2 hour. Likewise, we go for 6 to 6 hours and see the number of, that is OD measurements. So OD measurements will give you a continuous value, which is actually first it will be a slow lag phase, where there is no much difference in the count. Later on goes to the log phase, exponential phase. Later on comes down to the stationary phase. That is not down, if a plateau. There is no change in the number of the organism, because the number of organism dying and the dividing will be almost same, because some sort of mechanism going inside that. So there will be a stationary phase, and last there will be a decline phase. So this is how we plot a line. Line graph is always plotted for a continuous data. And similarly, we can plot the histogram also. Histogram may have some also measurable values. That is also possible. So then we have stem and leaf plot, where you can simply plot all the values corresponding to each type of category. Then we have line plot, we have box and whisker plot, which will be seen in the later classes. Now I have a worksheet to you. So let us see what type of data it is. So please, you can see these questions. The length is measurable quantity. So whether it is a discrete data or a continuous data. Discrete means a whole number, can only express in whole number. Continuous means you can express even decimals. So length can be measured, length can be measured and has a decimal value. Maybe that is my height will be 153.5. Okay, 153.5 centimeter. So 0.5 is actually the continuous. So we can pick the continuous part. So time taken to repair each car. We have got different time to repair each car. So I may get, if you are counting in minutes, what type of data it will be? Continuous or discrete? Nobody will say I'll repair the car in 5 minutes, 30 seconds, this many milliseconds. No, most of you will say this many minutes. Okay, so it will be again a what? Round off. So discrete data. Number of seats. Can you have a point in the number of seats? No. So it is a discrete data. Number of gear. Can you have a gear 2.5, 3, 3.5? No. So it is again a discrete one. Gear is also a discrete one. The number of miles per gallon. So number of miles per gallon. Again, it is a ratio. So it will have a decimal, and it will be continuous data. So you can give your answers in the comment section. A salesman records information about the car he is selling. This is a list of words. Which type of word will you use? The number of doors is dash data. The age of each car is dash data. The color of the car is dash data. 3 answers, select it and write it fast. So the small work to you. Let me see how many of you are answering this. Let me see the comments. Door discrete. Why my question is, the number of door is always, there is 1, 2, 3 or 4 there is door, right? So here we have got only 2 doors. So it is a discrete. Very good, Shalini. Okay, the age of each car is a continuous data, because we may have lot of 3.5 years. Very good. Janisha Mary, I congratulate you. Shyam Kumar, a discrete. For which question are you telling, Shyam? You can use unmute your mic and answer. Very good, very good. So number of door, discrete, color is qualitative. Very good. Discrete, continuous. Tonio, Ranjita, Amrita, it is continuous. Very good anyway. Did very well. Pavitra, the color of car is qualitative. Very good. So I hope you all are listening and it is interesting. Very good. Priya K. Darshini, Preeta, Santhya, very good. Very good. I didn't get the number, only number is displayed. Mala, very good, Mala. Discrete, continuous, qualitative, very good. Lakshmi, very good. Mohana Priya, good. Shruti, Kavya, Rapita, good, good, good. Mohana Priya, for the second question you have answered, Mohana Priya? Okay, okay, very good, very good. So very good. Thank you so much. Thank you for your listening. So this is the way you can understand that Charumati very good, Rajeshwari very good, Arolan very good, Bhuvaneshwari, Prativraj, Divya. Divya, which question answer it is? This the first one? Okay, first one. What about the second and third answer? Okay, so shall we go to the next thing? Next presentation, my next part. So very good, students. You have really participated very well. Now we'll go to the next session. So my next presentation is actually on so I shall share again type of data. No, type of data is over. So so next you're going to hear something which is new to you, but a very important thing to study. Let me share my screen. I have some question from Prithviraj, I think. Discrete, okay. So the next topic is on sample size calculator. So today we were like planning for sample size calculator also. So sample size determination. See, very important thing is when you're doing a research, you have to understand that how many samples you want to select or you have to consider while doing a research. That is when you want to show a result which is very much absolutely guaranteed by you, you require a very less number of samples. Or already the study is being done and you need a confirmation. Again, you require a less amount of sample size. So sample size is nothing but the number of samples required for doing a research. And why it is required? Only when you have that many sample size, your study can be statistically that is considered. You can do any change, any lesser number of samples can affect your research study as the statistics will answer in a improper manner. The statistical power will not be reached. We'll see that in detail now. Sample size determination is the act of choosing the number of samples taken for the study, for the statistical analysis. The sample size is an important feature for any empirical study in which the goal is to make inference and population from the sample. As you all know, any study is done in the clinical research to make inferences to give decision or to conclude with something. So if you want to do any inference, the first thing is you have to do a statistical analysis. Choose a particular analysis. And a particular analysis, you require some number of statistical size, sample size. For example, if you want to conduct a t-test, you require a sample size of 30. Okay, so if you want, that is student's t-test. If you want to do a z-test, you always have to consider a value more than 30. So this will help you to understand that with statistical analysis only possible when you have this much number of samples. As the students can do only a study with limited number of cases, that type of study is a t-test, that is independent, that is statistical analysis between the two different variables, dependent variable and independent variable separately is called as paired t-test, unpaired t-test, or paired t-test for unequal variance. So in practical, the sample size is used to study and determination of cost, time, convenience of collection of data. Based upon that, we can decide the sample size. Practically, that is only possible. If you're not able to, if you have got 1 year of study, you have to collect 50 cases, well and good. If you want to do a 1 year of study, you have to do 1,000 patients for a study. It is not possible. So to make a study feasible, I told you feasibility is nothing but the characteristic which will help you to do a study, complete a study within the particular time, money, and effort. So if you, practically speaking, if you want to complete your study within the stipulated time and convenience, you have to select a particular type of statistical value or statistical sample size. This offers sufficient statistical power. That means significance, chance of getting significance. In complicated studies, the sample size may be different. For example, in the case of cohort studies, different. In the case of cross-sectional studies, different. So now let us see about the experimental study, because that is a style, actually, trend actually. So in experimental study design, where a study may be divided into two types of treatment group of 3. Placebo can be drug A, drug B can be the different treatment group can be given. There may be different sample size. For the group 1, there can be sample size, group 2. Actually, when you use a placebo control test, it is nowadays told, earlier it is 50-50, nowadays it is told that it is 70-30. Some people say, European system say it is 60-40, but in the European system, American system says it is 60-40, European system says no, it is 70-30. So we have a British there is an association which says that you can use 70-30 for your treatment and a placebo group. Sample size may be chosen in different time. I told you, based upon different consideration, you can select a sample size. Based upon the prevalence of a disease, based upon the statistical power, based upon the confidence interval, based upon the confidence level, we can select the sample size. For if you are thinking about experience, that is, if you are a very experienced doctor, and if you know that the prevalence of disease in this time is this much, then you can talk with that. But that is not relevant if you have to give relevant literature review for that. So sample size using experience. Small samples, through sometimes unavoidable, can result in wild confidence, that is confidence intervals, and risk of errors are also very high. So while doing a statistical hypothesis testing, using a target variance for an estimate to be derived from the sample eventually obtained, a high precision is required. So if you have to narrow down the confidence interval, I will tell you what is confidence interval in the next slide. And low target variance of the estimator is also a problem. Using a target of power of statistical tests to be applied once a sample is collected, we can also determine the sample size. Using confidence level also, we can, that is, if your confidence level is larger sample size. If your confidence level is smaller, then lesser sample size. What is confidence level? You say that 95% is significant, 99% is significant. That is confidence level. So sample size calculation is commonly understood with two important terms: confidence interval, confidence level. Let us see on what is that. What is confidence interval? It is called as margin of error. That is the plus or minus value commonly reported by, you can hear from the newspaper, television, in a poll result. That is plus or minus this much, plus or minus 40, plus or minus 100. This change, the difference. Okay, that is called as the confidence interval. The interval of margin of errors they mark can be between this much and this much. For example, if you use a confidence interval of 4, if the 47% of the sample picks the answer sure, then if you have an answer, the question entire relevant population is answering it in the percentage. That is +4 and -4. That is, the range is actually between 47 தான் ஆன்சரா இருக்கும். ஆனா 4 தான் கான்ஃபிடன்ஸ் இன்டர்வல்னா 4 மைனஸ் எவ்வளவு வேல்யூ 43, 4 பிளஸ் என்ன வேல்யூ 51. So the range interval is between 43% to 51%. Okay, so confidence interval is actually a error between your answer, between which your answer may lie. How does confidence level? You are telling sure I'll get this much percentage of result. I'm sure about my result. That is, it is any biological study cannot be 100%. It can be only in 99% or 95%. That claiming that my surety about the result is this much is called as confidence level. So putting that two together, when confidence interval and confidence level are put together, both are considered in the study, put together, then you can say that 95% sure about the true percentage of the population is between 43% to 51%. அதாவது நான் ஷூரா இருக்கேன் 43%லேருந்து 51% வரைக்கும் பீப்புள் வந்து எஸ் தான் சொல்லுவாங்க அந்த புது இந்த தேர்தல்ல இந்த பர்டிகுலர் பர்சனை செலக்ட் பண்றதுக்கு. கான்ஃபிடன்ஸ் இன்டர்வல் பெருசா இருந்தா அன்சர்டனிட்டி ஜாஸ்தியா இருக்கும். அதாவது ஷூரிட்டி இல்ல, எவ்வளவு வேணாலும் மாறலாம். பீப்புளோட அபிப்பிராயம் எல்லாம் ரொம்ப டிஃப்ரெண்டா இருக்கும்னு சொல்றதுதான். நீங்க உங்க ரிசல்ட் வந்து ஷூரா சொல்லல அப்படி சொல்றதுதான் கான்ஃபிடன்ஸ் இன்டர்வல். ஓகே, சோ பெரிய கான்ஃபிடன்ஸ் இன்டர்வல்னா பெரிய டிஃபரன்ஸ் இருக்கும். நான் சொல்றது கண்டிப்பா நம்ப முடியாத ஒரு விஷயமா இருக்கும். நான் இப்ப சொல்றது வந்து 41 பேர் தான் இருக்கு, ஆனா கான்ஃபிடன்ஸ் இன்டர்வல் நான் சொல்லலைன்னா ரொம்ப பெருசா இருக்குன்னா அதுக்கு அர்த்தம் 21 வரலாம் 61 வரலாம். சோ அந்த மாதிரி டிஃபரன்ஸ், பெரிய டிஃபரன்ஸ் தான் வந்துரும். So this is why that is confidence interval is considered. So another factors which affect the confidence interval are sample size. Larger the sample, I told you, if you want to show the confidence interval higher, you have to see larger population. 100 பேர்ல இந்த பெர்சன்டேஜ் பார்க்கும்போது 100ல 60% 60 பேர் தான். ஆனா இப்ப 1000 பேரை கன்சிடர் பண்ணீங்கன்னா 60%னா 600 பேர். So that difference is high. Okay, so sample size, if you increase the sample size, there is more sure. That is why I'm told is 1000 பேர்ல 60 பேர் வந்து தப்பா சொல்றாங்கன்னா 1000லேருந்து 60 மைனஸ் பண்ண என்னது 940. So 940 people are telling right, but when you say in 100 people, it is again only 40 people. So that is the difference. When the sample size high, the confidence interval வந்து ரொம்ப neglect பண்ணலாம். Okay, it is not a big thing. Okay, if you want to say about the percentage also, 99% surety சொல்றது அதெல்லாம் வந்து கன்சிடர் பண்ணிக்கலாம். சாம்பிள் சைஸ் எப்பவுமே ஹையா தான் இருக்கணும். What is population size? Population size is number of people involved in the study. அதாவது நான் என்ன பீப்புள்ல ஸ்டடி பண்ண போறேனோ அந்த குரூப் ஆஃப் பீப்புளை தான் நம்ம வந்து பாப்புலேஷன் சைஸ்ன்னு சொல்றது. ஸோ சிஐனா கான்ஃபிடன்ஸ் இன்டர்வல், இது ரெண்டு வந்து ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் சாம்பிள் சைஸ் கால்குலேஷனுக்கு. We will see what is this is another important. You can go to this website. See, I'm giving a small thing because so many people may feel it is difficult to collect the sample size. So this is a small suggestion. You can go into this surveysystem.com, which is actually a website. You go inside the website, you have sample size calculator. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
No ma'am, no, we cannot see.
Now can you see?
No, only just PPT we can see.
If there is a difference in the screen, please inform me. What about now? No. Just a minute. Let's stop and do it again. Okay. So now I think you can see. So this is another easiest method you can use. That means sample size calculation is a difficult aspect for some people because all of us are not expert in statistics. So even I used to check it. We have a formula, but we use this technique to cross verify our studies. So determination of sample size can be easily done by this particular online calculator. Confidence interval you can measure. We can put what interval you are preferring. Number of population you are studying, that have to be taken from some previous studies, and then click sample. For example, if I put sample confidence level is 95% is the usual selection. Confidence interval I select it is 5, and I say the population, number of population of my study is 300. Let us see what is my sample size. My sample size is 300. The samples is 300. So what is the sample size? 169 is my sample size. So if I say that 300 people in my that is the community are affected with particular disease, and if I want to do a study of 95% confidence level, and I say that the study can be 5% this way or other way. My sample size required to prove that my study will be 169 people. So if you find the confidence interval, you can use this formula. Sample size கண்டுபிடிக்கிறதுக்கு இந்த formula. Sample size தெரியும், or you can use the same formula thing. Okay, 169 is the sample size. Population is again 30, 300, 300. What is the confidence interval? I told you 4.9, and that is 5%. So you understood that is 50-50 type of study is actually considered in that is confidence, that is interval. Okay, so this is the easiest method to find out the sample size and confidence interval from a study population. Now going back to the same PowerPoint that I have left you.
Chandraja ma'am, students are requested to share the survey link.
Yeah, sure, I'll do it. I'll put it in your comment box. So that is sample size determination in a quantitative study is actually done for understanding the level of precision, that is how much sure it is, level of confidence or risk, degree of variability of attributes. That means how much the measurable values are dependent, and that how much the disease is prevalent in your area. And this increase in the sample size or the sample that is confidence interval will add the validity of your study to another population also. When somebody else is repeating your study, if you want to surely say that this is your result, you can increase the sample size. So level of precision is actually decided by plus or minus 5. So the confidence level is actually either 95 or 99 based upon the surety. Then that if you have a group of population which are heterogeneous, you have to always increase the sample size. If your that is if your sample, if your group is homogeneous, that means if your population are of same character, not different, then you can lessen the sample size. For example, I told you in the last class, if you're considering random blood sugar level of patient, it is a wide range, you have to increase the sample size. But if you say my patient of HbA1c, which is very specific, of this range 6 to 6.5, and the range is very small, then you can have a smaller sample size.
Chandraja ma'am, please share the screen, ma'am.
Yeah,
PPT.
it is not screened or what?
No,
it's
no.
not shared.
No, PPT. Yes, okay.
Okay. So this is what is sample size. If you suggest that sample size is very much, if you want the sample size to be small, you have to keep up a small range of aspect. That is, population should be having a homogeneous type of characteristic. That is, the HbA1c value should not be so much wide. You can select a population with the HbA1c value 6 to 6.5. Likewise, commonly though, for a student level, the sample size is 30. And the upper limit for a student is commonly understood at 1,000, not more than that. And that too, not a cohort study or clinical study. Can be considered for a cross-sectional study or a group study for a that is for a particular survey or something like that. So this sample size, confidence interval, and also prevalence can be obtained from some type of websites which are already available. Okay, and there is a published table for determining the sample size. Okay, let me show you that. So this is nothing but a size. If you have a size of population 100, if you say that precision is plus 5 or minus 5, the sample size to be selected is 81. If you're sure about your study that is, it is absolutely correct, if I will be getting a correct that is a answer, then you can reduce, that is plus or minus 10% precision, then 551 is the sample size. So just like how you can see the sample size to be reduced, you have to increase the precision of it. Okay. The students are calling. So this is the Cochrane equation. Dr. Vishnupriya, I'll call you back. Okay. I'm in a small meeting. Okay. So based on Cochrane equation, this is the formula for sample size calculation. I told you it is a little bit difficult, but if you understand the different variables, then it is easy for you to calculate. The sample size is determined by the formula z square pq divided by e square. Z is nothing but the statistical table we have showed you. The value of z is found in the statistical table. You can select that from this. Based upon the confidence interval, you can select the value 1.9 for 95% significance, which will be much lower in the case of that is 99% significance. P value is actually the estimated proportion of attribute that is present in the population, and Q is nothing but 1 minus P. Whatever value is, the P can be 0.5 and Q can be again 1 minus 0.5, 0.5. Or if P is 0.8, the Q can be 0.2. That is 1 minus 0.8 is 0.2, P 0.8 na Q 0.2, P 0.4 na Q 0.6 likewise. Okay, so Z square na adoda statistical table oda value, P na proportion of the attribute in the population, Q na adoda opposite, and E vandata desired level of precision. I showed you the precision, 5%, 7%, and 10% precisions are already reported. You can select anyone from that. Okay, from that we can select, we can get the thing. This is the simplified formula, and this type of formula is commonly used. P value commonly preferred is 0.5. Confidence interval is 95%. So P is 5. So I understood P is 0.5, Q is again 0.5. Then Z you have to take from the that is table. E square alone you have to understand from the what precision, which precision you want. This is again sample size using precision, level of precision, and population size. Population how we can calculate this written over here. So that's all. I hope that this is enough for you. Okay, so that's all about today's class. I will send you the link for the sample size calculation which I have showed today now. The link is attached in your comment box. Okay, so that you can all see that. So there's a question from Shyam Kumar that why is it 95%, 99%? See, those are the statistical term. These are called as confidence level. That is always P value, which is probability of the success, or the hypothetical P is actually considered as 0.5. Okay, it is pre-recorded. That is the statistical methodology. So if you want to have a larger idea about the that is the 95% and 99%, you can refer the statistical text. And moreover that, we will be studying about it in detail, because all the normal distribution table, when you see, it is a bell-shaped curve. Okay, bell-shaped curve, and there is two end. We divide the bell-shaped curve into different that is sections. The center one is actually the mean, median, mode. If your distribution is a normal distribution, all the mean, median, mode, that is measures of central tendency, will fall in the center, which will divide the bell-shaped curve into equal halves. The next two section is actually the that is the 26.5, 26.5 of this two percentage of this two bell curve, which is considered as the plus or minus standard deviation. And next section is actually plus or minus 2 standard deviation, plus or minus 3 standard deviation. And after plus or minus 3 standard deviation, there is a small tail left out. that percentage, when you consider that percentage of the whole data, it is actually 2.5 and 2.5. And another says that it is 0.1 and 0.5, 0.5. If it is 1 point, that is that end, that negligible value to be omitted is actually considered as 5%. And if you want to, if you want to increase your precision, then your values may also be somewhat involved inside the graph, and you can have a very small negligible value of that is p, which can be 0.01 also. That becomes 99% significant. If your values are having some out, that is it goes out, that is it is squeezed out, that is called as 95% is significant, because 5% is actually the negligible tailing in the two end. I'll show you in the bell shape. You can refer any statistical test. You have a bell-shaped graph. It is divided into central, mean, median, mode, 2 plus or minus 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviation, 3 standard deviation, and the end you have 2 tails. That is totally calculated as 5%. And that 5% is actually minus when you take a confidence interval of this confidence level of 95. Okay. So I hope Shyam have got his answer. Anybody else to be answered? Any other question? Okay. Thank you so much, because today I took 15 minutes more because I should finish the first module today. And from next class, we'll go to the second module. So, Dr. Bhavya, can I stop the class?
Yes, Chandraja, I will stop it.
Okay, next class is on Monday.
Yes, Monday.
Okay, so we'll start with the second module on the Monday class. Thank you so much, students. Thank you.
Thank you.